Perhaps our conversion will prove popular. I do not know. That is not something I can gauge, given I cannot see into the future. It would be fortunate if it were, though. My financial status has been somewhat dire as of late. Yeah, mine too. That is because you spent all your money on opium. Not all of it! You are being rather too harsh. Then I apologize. Half you spend on opium. The other half you fritter away on pointless pursuit and worse vices whenever the mood does strike you. Vices? What vices do you prove that I have, dear Lillian? Sloth, for one. Vanity and greed are others. Samantha pouted, puffing out her cheeks. You talk of me as though I have the sensibility of a small child or as a magpie. I'm not that simple-minded, you know. Yeah. You make an excellent case for your maturity, Samantha. When you pull a face like that. Where you never told as a child that if you make unbecoming faces, the wind may blow and you will be stuck like that? That is an old superstition. You cannot really believe in such things, silly Lily. Silly Lily. But it's wind, not if you get hit in the back. At least that's how it was going on a superstition in my environment. Never mind. Now truly, though, you are such a ridiculous person. I sometimes wonder common sense even applies to you. And now you seek to make me sound like a fairy. It is almost as though you do not regard me as a real human. That is only because you often fail to act like one. Oh, that poison tongue of yours, Lillian, is going to burn a hole right through my heart someday. In mock despair, Samantha clasped her hand against her breast, turning her head away in a display of anguish. The wind caught in her hair, making it dance about her shoulders, an unkempt lion's mane. If truly was a pleasant day, was all the preceding summer days of late had been. Nature sprang up in abundance, as for the ground had been blessed by the Greek goddess Demeter. The air was sweet, infused with the gentle thrill of distant birdsong. The earth underfoot was slightly damp from the morning mist and squelched in a satisfying manner beneath Samantha's heels. The sound mingled with the rustling of fallen leaves, the occasionally crack of a broken twig. When Samantha walked alongside Lillian during days like this, she sometimes allowed herself to believe that she could get better, that everything was alright. It was an enjoyable fantasy, one far more intoxicating than her various other musings, and one that she wished she could succumb to more easily when her spirits were low. Look at this, Lily! Huh? Lillian blinked, surprised as Samantha suddenly seized hold of her hand, pointing towards a thicket of rich red roses. Do you think these flowers are beautiful? The way the bright red is offset by the sharp thorns. There's something about it that stirs my heart. They are perfectly charming, it is true. Right? Samantha giggled, seeming pleased with herself, although Lillian wasn't really sure why. Sights like this rejuvenate me. I can feel my creativity coming back to me with every single step I take. Lillian was tempted to say, "It's a shame this creativity could not have come to you earlier whilst we were still writing our collaboration," but she decided against it. Such a comment would be too cruel, especially when Samantha had seemed so listless lately. The exertion from their country trek and the hearty stink of the breeze had rendered Samantha's cheeks a healthy dark red, almost glowing with life. She seemed so different from the Samantha she had been these past few days, with the listless eyes and pale limbs hardly able to rouse herself out of bed in the mornings, that Lillian was almost taken back. and Lillian was hardly ever taken aback. Has the completion of our collaboration really lifted your spirits to such a great degree, Samantha? Of course! It feels almost like a dream. Ever since I met you, Lillian, I knew I wanted to create something with you. Something great. And now finally, after all our hard work, this desire has finally seen fruition. Do you not think that is grand? Even though I did almost all of the work. Again, it was another caustic thought, one that Lillian could not bring herself to voice. It was wrong for her to feel resentful towards Samantha's happiness. Lillian knew better than anyone else that Samantha's moments of ecstasy were always short-lived, vanishing as quickly as they came. Even so, a happy Samantha was not a Samantha Lillian was fully accustomed to. When she was happy, she became so uncharacteristically smug it made Lillian grin her teeth together. It had been Samantha who proposed they try to write something together. Not something small and simple, but something large, grandiose. A whole collection of poetry. Samantha had been so beside herself with anticipation at her new project, she had explained it to Lillian in excitable tones, tripping over her words as water flowed over rocks in a river. It should be something magnificent, Lily, something revolutionary. Something that no other artist has attempted before, and who better to attempt it than you and I. We shall tell everybody of the joys we have experienced through nature, all through poetry, and like nature, it should be unbound, unfettered, no longer chained to the priggish, antiquated forms of our forebears. Together we can usher in something new. This had all sounded very impressive when Samantha had told her, and Lillian had been eager to agree to Samantha's proposed collaboration. However, Lillian had no suspected when her friend first told her of this idea, that Samantha often fell prey to periods of depression, so dark and deep she was unable to even look at a piece of paper, let alone write anything on it. If Lillian had known of Samantha's impediment, she probably would have been more cautious before agreeing to collaborate with her. However, the way Samantha had spoken had been so eloquent, so persuasive. Lillian had been swept away. Lillian clicked her tongue against the roof of her mouth. She had been so foolish, uncharacteristically so. What a staggering lack of foresight. Lillian did not regret her friendship with Samantha completely. The two of them did get along rather well. On the day Samantha managed to get out of bed with her head screwed on straight, or out of bed at all, but this collaboration had been far more stressful than it was worth. With Samantha struck down with depression so heavy, it was a surprise her school was still in one piece. The brunt of the work had been left to Lillian. It was she who had contributed most of the poems to the collection, even though it had not been her idea, and when Lillian was not writing, it often felt like she was busy taking care of Samantha, trying to chivvy her along with words of encouragement and smiles that slowly grew more and more forced as time wore on. Sometimes in her darker moments, Lillian wondered whether this was the same feeling single mothers had, trying to raise their children alone. Caring for a child was a chore that should have been shared by two people, given babies could only be born by a union between a man and a woman. However, too often it seemed as though some people conveniently forgot they had some measure of responsibility for the new life they had helped spawn. In this situation then, did that make Samantha the errant man, Lillian the beleaguered woman? At times she had certainly felt like it. And still, despite all of that, Samantha still had the gall to consider that project one in which she had an equal right to, one in which she could be proud in, just as much as, if not more than, Lillian herself. Sometimes Lillian wanted nothing more to shake this foolish girl by the shoulders. Maybe then she would learn to take more responsibility for her own actions. In this world, everything we said and did had a consequence. Samantha needed to start facing them. But when Samantha surveyed her with such a cheerful expression on her face, wreathed in smiles. Lillian could not help but find her anger abating, even though she rather wished it would not. If she could remain angry at Samantha, as indeed she had every right to, then maybe she could make Samantha understand. Maybe she could make her repent. Maybe she could even make her change. Or maybe such a thing was not possible after all. Despite her short stature and sickly skin, Samantha was even more stubborn than Lillian herself. I can't believe Roberta would say something like that. I thought we were supposed to be friends. I'm sure we were once upon a time, but perhaps her feelings for you were thin after your disastrous marriage to her fiancé's brother. Oh, Lillian, please not be cruel to me. In my current state, I cannot take it. I was merely stating a fact. Yeah, it is all very well and good for your state facts, but your poetry has not come under nearly as much scrutiny as mine. Samantha winced, clutching at her chest with one hand. The material of her dress bounced about her grasping fingers in a rather ungainly manner. I was right to doubt my talents. This whole time I have been fooling myself. Me, a great poet. Ha! I could sooner sprout wings and fly to the moon. It is only a handful of critical comments, Samantha. To try to put things into perspective. A handful of critical comments leveled at me and my work, which I was foolish enough to take pride in. My feet have not touched the earth for some time since we published our work. So glad was that I had finished such a lofty undertaking with my dear Lillian. But now, this outpouring of criticism has finally awoken me to the truth. It has knocked me about the head and restored my own common sense, which must have been wandering away with the fairies. Fairies, not friends, fairies. I am a failure as a poet and as a person. If I cannot bring joy to others through the written word, then what purpose do I even have existing on this earth? Samantha, would you like something to drink? Perhaps it would calm you down. A drink! If only a drink would have erased these criticisms from my mind, but no. They have been imprinted upon my brain. Hush now. If you keep going so noisy, you will bother Theodore. It is late, and my dear brother is trying to get to sleep. Oh, Theodore, who cares about Theodore when my whole heart is breaking? I care about Theodore. He's my beloved younger brother. So you care about Theodore more than you care about me? That is childish, Samantha. We are no longer in primary school, and I am under no obligation to pick favorites. You speak with the voice of a politician. You're simply trying to avoid my question. Because it is not worth answering. Not worth answering. Yes, that's right. Nothing I have to say is worth answering, it seems. My words are worth nothing at all, save a few lines of mockery in the critical review. Samantha reached forwards with trembling fingers and took the publication from Lillian's hands. She was shaking so badly, Lillian, though not given to bursts of wild imagination as Samantha was, swore she could hear her friend's teeth chattering, her bones grinding together underneath her skin. Unfolding the paper, Samantha searched for Roberta's comments on her poetry, particularly those on her rhyme of an ancient mariner. Listen, Roberta says my work is nothing more than a Dutch attempt at German sublimity, the narrative absurd or unintelligible. At least Roberta did not say absurd and unintelligible. It is not as harsh as it could be. That is of little comfort to me, Lillian. This poem, this was the one I was the most proud of, which I revised numerous times in an attempt to bring it as close to perfection as I could. And what I'd receive for my pains? Only insults, injuries, injustices, but no, that is not true either. They are not injustice, for I see now my work deserves every bit of mockery it receives. I really am talentless after all. My spring all dried up with old age. You are not old. You are only 25. I feel old. I feel so old I wish I were dead. Maybe I should go and drown myself. I might spare me my current misery. If you are sincere about doing something so foolish, then I would be driven to drown you first. Then it will work out all the better for me. Everybody wins. Oh, please. Lillian scoffed, rolling her eyes so hard they were in danger of falling straight out of her head. Ever since Samantha had stumbled upon Roberta's review, she had been beside herself, working through cycles of self-righteousness, self-pity, self-depreciation, and self-loathing that served only to keep repeating, ad nauseam, until she had almost driven herself into unintelligible. Maybe Roberta did have a point after all, hysterics. Lillian had long since lost track of the time. For the curtains above the window were drawn, she knew the sky outside would be dark. Her brother Theodore had assisted Lillian in the beginning, offering gentle smiles, pats on the back, and cups of tea to the devastated Samantha, but finally his fatigue overcame him and drove him to seek solace in his bedroom. Sitting in her chair, gripping her armrests so hard her knuckles turned white, Lillian longed to do the same, yet knew she could not. How could she leave Samantha like this, when she seemed so consumed with misery she may actually go through with her suicidal treats? And yet, it was frustrating. Lillian was getting sleepy, and listening to her friend rant and rave like a woman possessed was giving her a headache. If she did not get enough sleep, it would disrupt her daily routine, and if there was one thing Lillian could not abide, it was her routine being disrupted. And that is to say nothing of the scathing review I received a few days ago, which described my poem as a rhapsody of wildness and incoherence. It feels as though nobody appreciates my poetry, nobody enjoys it, or even cares to understand it. I have been a fool. I have and am an incorrigible idiot. How could I develop myself to be happy? How could I even have considered for a brief moment that I may have created something grand? I don't know. I don't know what I want to do anymore. It feels as though everything is falling around my head. Lillian heaved a great sigh, exhaling so heavily it was audible even to Samantha standing across the room. Then why don't you try picking up the pieces and starting again? You can always rewrite. What is the point of rewriting a work when it has been reviled as dross? Painting a stone god will not turn it into gold. It will simply be a stone, aspiring to levels of greatness it can never, nor can ever hope to achieve. Then why don't you why don't you write something else? You surely have more than one idea inside your head, Samantha. But I staked so much on that poem. It is more than a poem. It is the crystallization of my very dreams. Can you not find new ones? What? You speak of dreams as though they are seashells one could simply pick up at the beach. Perhaps they are. We all must sleep, Samantha, and we all dream. Dozens of new dreams are created within our heads every single night. Are you telling me to get some rest, Lillian? That is what I'm telling you, yes. I'm sure things will look better by the morning light. You have simply worked yourself up into a state as per usual. You! Lillian! Samantha suddenly started to tremble, clutching her head to her head. Overtired, nursing a headache of her own, Lillian was awake enough to note and to be shocked by the moisture that was beginning to pad in the corners of her friend's eyes. Was Samantha crying? Although Lillian did feel a certain degree of pity for her friend, she could not help but be irritated by this development. It was far too late at night for tears. Despite her great reverence for Harold Williams, the great sentimental author of the French Revolution, Lillian herself had a limited capacity for sentiment, especially when she was tired. Lillian! Are you trying to get rid of me? Has my company bored you so much that you no longer want to look at my face? Samantha, please. It is late and I'm tired. You are being selfish. Selfish? Samantha stumbled backwards, pressing one hand against her cheek as for she had been struck. Is really so foolish to ask a friend to comfort her when one is feeling down? Am I really being selfish? She spoke in such tone of wonderment, as for she had honestly not considered the possibility before, that it only fanned Lillian's temper further. What a foolish creature. Was she truly so oblivious to the feelings of others, so completely wrapped up inside her own internal struggles that she could not realize when she was being a burden? Unfortunately, it seemed highly likely that the answer was yes. You are being selfish, Samantha, but that is of little surprise to me. You have been selfish throughout the duration of our friendship, and I have no faith that you will stop now. You do not mean that you do, Lillian? You do not really think I'm selfish, do you? Why would I say such a thing if I did not believe it? But you have not told me that before, not in such a direct manner. If you harbor such a grudge against me, why did you not tell me earlier? I could have tried to fix it. You say that, but I know you would not. You honestly have no idea just how much trouble you cause people, do you? Ouch. I do not wish to talk with you any further on the subject. If you still cannot understand, then this only confirms my suspicions. You do not care for my company anymore. Samantha spoke softly, hardly daring to voice her own concerns. She was too afraid of the answer. But still, she had to ask, even though she knew Lillian's response would only hurt her. Why did she always do things that upset her? Instead of drawing away, she came closer, directly with purpose, setting her fingers over the open flame. Maybe she really was a masochist after all. Do you no longer like me, Lillian? Lillian paused, thinking. Should be brutally honest, or should she tell a small lie to spare her friend's feelings? Under other circumstances, she would almost definitely have gone for the second option. Not necessarily because Samantha's pained reaction would make her feel guilty, for that was part of it, but because it would cause a lot less hassle. Right now, however, Lillian had reached her limit. She had enough, and she wanted Samantha to know that. No. At the moment I do not particularly care for your company. Certainly none of my other acquaintances are as unapologetically difficult as you. You're being so melodramatic I can hardly understand what you mean. In that sense, I suppose Roberta has a point. You really are unintelligible, and I have no desire to sit here and try to decipher what you mean. Samantha whimpered in pain, pressing one hand to her cheek. Her whole face flushed red from shame, her eyes sparkling with tears. They oozed in pools at the corners of her eyes, trickling down her cheeks like falling rain. Her nose was running, yet she did not seem to notice. She was unable to notice anything other than her own misery. That always happened when Samantha was upset. She was incapable of considering the feelings of anybody other than herself, and so, swept up in her own misery, she unconsciously attempted to wash everybody else away with her. For a few moments, Lillian felt a brief tingle of conscience. Perhaps she had gone rather too far. She knew how seriously Samantha took her writing, and she knew just how delicate her ego was. She was Samantha's closest friend, and she knew the younger woman better than anyone. But that also meant, better than anyone, she knew just how selfish Samantha could be, how self-indulgent. She knew how lazy she was, and how disorganized, and how clumsy, how clueless, how anxious, how contrary. And Lillian was tired of it. She did not want to listen to Samantha any longer, for fear she might truly lose her cool and say something even cooler, something she would come to regret later. Alright, Lillian, I see how it is. You want me to go, and even though I'm failure as a poet, incomprehensible, as you said, and a failure as a human being, I do have some pride. Even though you may not think it to look at it, I'm sorry, Lillian. I'm sorry for bringing a burden. And she ran away. Samantha, wait! It is dark outside, and you are not in no fit state to wander around by yourself. You might get hurt. Lillian called after the younger woman, extending out her hand, but it was too late. Samantha had already turned to leave, running away on legs so wobbly it was a wonder she was able to support herself. Did that silly girl really intend to run all the way back to her home like that? It was dangerous. Lillian's mind was beset with images of her tripping over her own feet, cracking her head against a rock, freezing to death with cold. And yet, despite that, Lillian still did not go after her. Why? You should have done this, she could not bring herself to. In some strange, calculatedly cruel way. Perhaps that would be better. When she was with Samantha, she was always forced into parental position, and it was exhausting. Samantha made Lillian care rather too much, and only ever caused her grief. That girl never realized just how much trouble she put Lillian through, and often seemed to take her company for granted, despite her lofty claims that she loved Lillian more dearly than any other living thing. Lillian scoffed. If that were true, she pitied all the others Samantha had ever interacted with. It was little wonder she and Roberta had had that falling out recently, since it was just so difficult. Yeah, if Samantha left her life and did not come back, that really would be for the best. Ow, that wasn't nice. Samantha's sleep that night was intermittent, suffused with strange nightmares, which awoke her with a start. Chest rising and falling heavily, her brow bathed with sweat. Frightening monsters, amorphous blobs, demonic apparitions that would be more at home within one of her poems, caged by the English language and forced it all into some semblance of order, assaulted her, making her whimper. Why did these hallucinations feel so real? Could it be that she really was losing her mind? Samantha did not want to know. In her current state of mind, thinking, was far too much of a burden. All she wanted to do was sleep. Curl up in her bed, her eyes closed, and succumb to the gentle dreams of more idyllic times, strolling the hills with Lillian, sitting by her side, staring up at the sky, Edie playing with her long blonde hair as Lillian recited her poetry. Except that last part never happened, had it? Lillian never let Samantha close enough for such a thing. Even for Samantha often aged to touch Lillian's hair, her fingers trembling as she forced them to remain on her lap, a desire so heavy it was almost painful. Sometimes Samantha even became jealous of the sun, intensely, impossibly envious that it should be able to shine its rays so freely across Lillian's cheeks, her neck, her eyelids, when Samantha was not. Why was Samantha not allowed the same level of intimacy, the same close contact? They were friends, were they not? But maybe that was not all. For she had been close companions with Roberta for several years, Samantha had never felt any small urge with her. Was it something about Lillian? Or was it something about Samantha? Again with the questions she could never answer. She could not answer. Oh, she really was a fool. What if she had ruined her relationship with Lillian? What if Lillian never spoke to her again? What would she do then? Most likely she would die. If Lillian were not by her side, Samantha was sure she could not go on living. There was no point. Samantha, are you awake? Samantha sat upright in bed, holding her covers around herself. Her hair was so thoroughly tangled, wild from disrupted sleep, punctuated with all the tossing and turning of a ship stranded at sea in the middle of a storm. A bird could have mistaken it for a mast. By contrast, Lillian looked striking enough to be hailed as Aphrodite in human flesh, her long blonde hair falling about her shoulders in waves, each individual strand begging for their beauty be commemorated in lyrical or painted form. Flushing, Samantha dropped her gaze towards her knees, hidden under the blankets. Why did Lillian always look so perfect? And in the middle of the night too? What was her secret? Perhaps thought Samantha with a certain touch of the macabre, she was really a vampire. Or maybe a witch. That would explain an awful lot of things, like how she always seemed to know where her shoes were, and her bonnet, and her gloves, and never seemed to lose off or crumple or fall asleep on her manuscripts. Then again, if witchcraft were to answer to Lillian's incomprehensibly tidy nature, then surely her brother Theodore had also formed a similar contract in his youth, and were witches always female? Samantha wrinkled her nose. Penny switch and... There is a name for, like, for a man being... for a man being like similar to a woman being a witch. Oh, God damn it. I don't remember how it was called. Let's go with the story because I probably won't get this name to my mind right now. Samantha wrinkled her nose. She was perhaps giving the foolish train of thought far too much attention. Especially when Lillian was standing just a few inches away from the foot of her bed. Why was Lillian in her bedroom at this time of night? Well, yeah, I wonder. What was the reason? Hadn't the other woman been irritated with her earlier? Maybe she had gone to make amends, but sad, for it was Samantha could not imagine Lillian lying awake at night, pained by the thought that she may have upset her. Seriously, that name for a man being a... don't know, whatever. Samantha may have been a dreamer, but she had enough common sense to know, however little she wished to admit it, that she relied on Lillian far than Lillian relied upon her. Lillian! What are you doing here? Why do you sound surprised? Is it so strange that I should come to visit my close friend, whom I worry I may have wronged? Although this response sounded rational coming from Lillian's lips, everything sounded rational coming from Lillian's lips, Samantha still had her reservation. Would the Lillian she knew and loved, with her stern mannerism and slightly aloof outlook, ever willingly offer her an apology? Samantha could not conceive it. But what about your brother? Did that other mind you coming to visit me, and so late? Lillian gave a dismissive shrug of her shoulders. What does the other have to do with it? He might be worried. He does care for you a great deal. And I for him. However, I am not a child. And I am quite capable of walking by myself unaccompanied by you. I was not attempting to insinuate anything of the sort. I was merely concerned for the other's sake. He would be quite troubled if by happenstance he woke in the middle of the night and discovered you were gone. Sam, why must you talk of such little things? I know you are not a dull person, so please do not pretend to be one. Lillian? Hush now. I did not venture all the way here, in the dark, to sit and exchange pleasantries about the well-being of my brother, no matter how dear I hold him. Then why? Do you honestly need to ask? I'm asking because I do not know the answer, my dear Lillian, and I do not know for what other reason a sensible person would endeavor to make such a query, were it not for the desire of feminine enlightenment. Although Samantha did doubt whether her word sensible could really be applied to her. When she tried it on, she found it fitted poorly, like trying to force her fingers into gloves made for a child. Being sensible was far too uncomfortable, far too constricting. Even contemplating the word made her feel short of breath, Or maybe that was just because in the few moments she had been entertained with these useless nations, Lillian had suddenly drawn even closer. Lillian, hey! Sam, you are talking too much. Hi. Hi. For once, do not overthink things. Just allow me to take care of you. That is easier said than done, I fear. It's improper, is it not? Such a thing. It's against common decency. Since when have you cared for common decency? That is true. I know this is what you want. You are incapable of being alone, like a rabbit. You will die if you become too lonely. All you want is to be taken care of, protected, and I can do it. I have the ability. Whoa. Samantha's breath caught in her throat. Her brow felt hot, her cheeks flushed, although the temperature in her room was crisp and cool. Could this really be happening? Was this scene which Samantha had only dared to entertain in the other reaches of her imaginations real? Samantha sat there in bed, holding the covers about her, as Lillian drew in closer, so close in fact that she was almost able to count each and every one of her individual eyelashes. Samantha's heart was beating fast, hammering against her ribcage as for attempting to escape her body. She was worried Lillian would hear, that she would tease her for her reluctance, when Samantha had wanted this for so long, almost from the day they met. Lillian, hi. Oh. But Samantha was not permitted to say another word. Softly, Lillian captured her lips with her own, a kiss different from that of a man's, different from Simon's, with their hard jaws and coarse chins, spotted with stubble. Lillian's lips were unlike anything Samantha had experienced before. They were warm and inviting, not hard or hungry, as for trying to devour her mouth, claim her as a prize. Samantha dimly recalled the few times she and her husband Simon had attempted intimacy, displays she often instigated solely out of desire to see if she could bring herself to feel something other than dull apathy or mild distaste towards her betrothed. Each and every time she was left feeling disappointed. Poor guy, very. While Simon attempted to pleasure her, Samantha would lie there in bed, determined not to make a sound, and glare at him as though he were a mild irritation, a fly buzzing around her head. She didn't know why she did it. Maybe she wanted to make him feel awkward, embarrassed, guilty? Such displays were not true intimacy, they were a mockery of it, and soon it grew so unbearable. Samantha could not bring herself to share the same bed as her husband. No, the same county. She could not stand to even see his face, for all it instilled in her was a sense of vague bitterness. But Lillian was not like that. Lillian could never be like that. Simon claimed to care for Samantha, and had only ever attempted to be kind and gentle, yet still, Samantha could not love him. She could not even like him, and she detested him all the more for trying to sway her affections. But Lillian could have abused Samantha in any imaginable way. Oh, and Samantha would still love her. Lillian could ignore her for weeks, mock her poetry, make light of her emotions, tear her self-esteem to ribbons with her insults, and Samantha would still come crawling back to her. She had to. She needed to be with Lillian to live. Being around Lillian day in out, was like a strange kind of poison. Sweet and intoxicating, but ultimately lethal, as Lillian's own talents made Samantha more and more acutely aware of just how limited her own were. Being with Lillian made Samantha feel slow, and it made her feel stupid, and it made her feel insignificant. But Samantha loved Lillian all the same. Perhaps she even loved feeling bad about herself, because if she knew she was nothing more than a worthless fool, then she need not try to get better. She could simply surrender herself to the knowledge she would always, no matter what she did, be inferior to Lillian, and then she need to not have to try anymore. And Samantha grew so tired of trying. Before Samantha knew it, she found fresh tears bedding in the corners of her eyes. They were cool against her hot skin, and helped make her more aware of her own physicality, the reality of her impossible situation. Lillian, I really do like you. And I'm rather fond of you too. Yes. But is this really alright? Samantha averted her eyes, looking down at her lap, her lashes fluttering. I had always believed you were partial to the French boy Anton. I was partial to him terribly so. He was my first love. But I was much younger then and more blunt, and that flame has long since died out. I doubt that I could return to France now. Not after what has been said in the papers, for I do not believe the most wild of rumors. It would not be safe. But I do not understand how we could form an attachment to somebody like me. I am one of the more distinctly un-French persons there are. I appreciate the works of Schiller. My writing is too German. That is what the reviews said. That is perfectly acceptable. Being French is not one of the main prerequisites I have when searching for a partner. But in addition to that, I'm also annoying, incredibly annoying. I even annoy myself, so I can imagine how much my constant rambling must annoy you. How could you even conceive of addressing me so gently, when all I do is cause distress and Disney? You said it yourself earlier. Oh, damn it, it's raining again. I did? Yeah. You said I was particularly sadistic person. You must be playing with my heart like this. A woman's heart can be a rather fragile thing, you know. I know. And I also know, despite your love for talk, which could fool anybody into believing you are a confident and accomplished woman of few concerns, that you are rather more fragile than most. I suppose I cannot argue against it. And being your closest companion, and also as you termed it, a sadist, perhaps you could imagine that I have taken liking to and wish to protect you from those who would do you harm, not least of all yourself. That doesn't sound particularly sadistic to me. Not in my perhaps limited understand of the word. Understanding. Then allow me to put it like this. Lillian took Samantha's shoulders in her hands and leaned forwards, pressing another kiss against her lips. I want you to belong to me, and only to me. Nobody else can have you, and nobody else is allowed to hurt you. Lily! Oh, Lily! I love you, Sam. I really do. Ever since the moment I met you. In disbelief, Samantha cupped her hands together, pressing against her mouth, to suppress her intelligent, intermingled sobs of happiness and surprise, which she knew she must surely be emitting, even against her will. I love you too, Lily! I really truly do, more than I love anything else. I could not be by your side. I'm sure I would die. Oh, if I could not, okay. You are so melodramatic. You throw it out of me more than most. Does that mean I'm special? Special? To me, yeah, of course. And soon, once your genius is recognized, I'm sure you can become special to the public too. A voice for the people. A celebrity. I do not care overly much about their affection. All I want is yours. You don't need to worry about that. You have always had it, all of it, all this time. Again, the two girls leaned forwards, Samantha now more bold than before, after having secured affirmation of her affection. Holding one another close, they sought one another, their lips pressing together once more in a tender expression of emotion. Lily, I really do love you. All this time. This whole time Lily? Wait, sorry. Lily? Samantha blinked once, and instantly the image before her dissolved, like ink in water. Gone was the form of Lillian, vanished without a trace, as all phantoms do when exposed to the merciless light of day.